Welcome to another edition of A Voice to the Gentile Church. I'm Jim Wingerter. Next to me is Pastor Roger Diaz. Next to him is Dolores Lowe. So Dolores, Meta took a big lawsuit and Meta's Facebook, and it opens the door for a mess.
Yes. So the jury found that Meta and Google were negligent in that they allowed their social media algorithms. They found their social media algorithms to be addictive, particularly to young people. So, all that time that people spend on Facebook, Instagram, all that stuff. And they awarded, this was one person, right? And they awarded $3 million. So now the door's been opened, right?
So for a lawsuit to succeed, there has to be damage. What's the damage?
Well, we've had lots of young kids commit suicide, do all these stupid, challenges and die. I mean, just last week here in Florida, a 12-year-old girl died because they had some stupid challenge where, bring themselves to the point of asphyxiation and then come back, right? Mm-hmm. And the kid tried it and died, right?
Right.
So parents have no responsibility, there bear no responsibility.
There should be. Yes, there should be. But these algorithms are really powerful.
I know. But we've allowed them in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
We've fostered them. So
I was reminding someone last week that when Facebook was a new thing and we all were signing up for it, there was no advertising.
Right. Now 90% of my Facebook is ads.
None. I mean, I looked at that and said, how do they keep above water as a business?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. 90% now is ads. So,
yeah.
So we'll see where that goes, but I predict that there's an awful lot of lawyers getting ready right now to launch a whole bunch of other lawsuits.
I call them ambulance chasers.
Yeah. So that's coming. And well, I'm going to leave it at that. And as we know, the war in Iran is raging on.
Yeah.
We are now, week 5? Is that what we're at?
It's
5 or 6?
It's at least 4.
And it amazes me that Iran still has missiles.
Yeah.
I mean, we have bombed the living daylights out of them, and they still have missiles to launch. So, I mean, where's it all coming from, right?
China.
Where has it been? Yeah. So in the most recent poll, most Americans say that the U.S. military action against Iran has gone too far.
Yeah, it's understandable,
Yeah.
So you said when we talked about this that
regime change is critical. They need it.
Yes. And what most Americans, the left has done a great job of clouding this issue. We know for a fact that Iran had nuclear capability because they said it. They said we have enough nuclear material to build about 20 bombs.
Right.
Okay. We know for a fact now, no one can dispute this, that they had long-range missile capability because they hit Diego Garcia, right? That's about 3,500 kilometers. So now, and the missile that they hit Diego Garcia with could do about 4,000 kilometers, right? So that covers most of Europe.
Right.
So all these things we know for a fact now. There's no more debating it, no more arguing about it. We know it. And it's only a matter of time before those regional ballistic missiles now become intercontinental ballistic missiles, and they can get across the ocean, right? But people, they're all worried about the price of oil. Imagine if we had fought World War II like this.
Right.
Where people were having to build victory gardens, there was no oil, people were having to donate to the government. We would have never won World War II if we fought like this.
Well, the powers that exist didn't deem this to be a world war. If the engine that created World War I and II was behind this, it would be that way.
True.
The globalists will give us World War I and II, and they campaigned it pretty well.
Yeah.
They had the whole world engaged in it. So a World War III, they would probably treat it the same way. You would see the same type of preparations and so on. But this war is Trump is a maverick,
Mm-hmm.
And what he's doing there isn't based on global opinion. It's counter global opinion. It's Trump needed to get in there really, really expressing real fury, and so hurt the government that they would not be able to even be, involved in the propaganda that's going on right now. The force that hit the government of Iran should have been doubled from Israel and from this country, and just go in, get it done, crush that government completely, and get out. I agree, it's going on too long, and Iran's been allowed to do things that they should not have been allowed to do. They should not be holding the Straits of Hormuz. That should be completely. They should be stripped of it completely. But I think the campaign needed to be about twice as heavy as it is right now.
Yeah, but one of the problems is none of our wonderful NATO allies came in until the war was decisively on our side. Then the British sent one ship, the French sent one ship, and then until Diego Garcia got hit, they weren't even going to take part. They were like only there for defensive purposes, right?
I feel really bad for the Iranian people because Iran's going to declare victory and will suppress the people just much more than they've ever been suppressed. Trump took on a task that he should have finished. I think he's going to back out of it because he's seeing that there's too much involved. Politically,
I agree
there's too much involved.
Yeah.
So he's going to, the Iranian people are going to suffer.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
And the whole world will suffer.
Well,
because,
ultimately,
Iran is not going to, they're gonna hunker down, and they're going to build up again. And then when we go to attack again, it's not going to be.
Well, they are in the place right now where they are convinced that the great conflict leading to the 12th Imam, the Mahdi, has begun. And they're not going to back away from that. They believe that this conflict is the evidence that it's leading to this global
absolutely.
Global conflict that will bring about, like I said, the coming of the Imam. So they're not going to back off. They're going to get more aggressive, and they're going to revenge. They're going to take revenge. It's not going to be good. Israel, by all rights, should do whatever it takes to destroy that government, regardless of what Trump thinks or of what Trump does. Israel, it's up to Israel to take care of Iran, and that's the way it should be. Trump needs to back out and let Israel do what Israel has to do.
Yeah.
They need to get in there with special forces and just put an end to this government. This government is 50 years in the making, has done so much harm to the Iranian people and other countries around. I mean, what they did in Iraq, back in the 1990s, they need to be stopped. And if the world isn't courageous enough to do it, Israel needs to do it.
So I have a question. So there was a bombing that the United States did prior to this event.
Right.
That destroyed their nuclear stockpile. So somewhere there's a field of 60% enriched uranium that you wouldn't want to wander into.
Right.
And what's to be done?
I mean, here's my thought process. If we leave Iran the way we're leaving them now, which reports say that Saturday we're going to call an end to the war, Iran will lie quiet for a little while as they build up again, right? And they're going to go out and dig if they have to, because they could just start another enrichment process somewhere else in the country. But if they have to, they know where there's enriched uranium.
Right.
They just got to go dig it out, right? So I envision that. To make it even more insulting, the United States has taken 2 Iranian officials off the assassination list, right? Because they are saying that the Wall Street Journal is saying this, right? The president hasn't said this. But one of them is the Speaker of their parliament, right? Because Wall Street is saying he's going to be the one we're going to negotiate with, because everybody else is dead, right? Even Mojtani, whatever, he's dead. He's dead. So this guy is supposed to be the one that we're going to work with in the future, right? There is video of this guy throwing people off roofs. But this is the person we're going to negotiate with?
So,
This is the person we're
like
going to
I
leave in
said,
power?
Nasser
there's
Arafat.
coming a disaster as a result of Trump wanting to back out of it. Trump is seeing his political gain dwindle, and he's going to back out of it. But I think Israel needs to finish the job,
Yep,
despite Trump's displeasure.
Right.
absolutely.
So, because the situation in Iran is going, I'm concerned about the people. You know, of course, Iran's going to, this is the Mahdi time, so they're going to, we're looking at a completely different world in the next 5 years if Trump does this. But I think he's going to do it because at his core, his concern is his image. He's a narcissist.
Oh, this isn't
Yeah.
going to be good for his image. I can
No,
tell you.
But
History
he's
will
wanted to
not.
salvage it. He's wanted to
He's
salvage
not going to
it.
salvage it this way.
Well,
History
he's
will
going to come
not
out.
be
He's
kind
going
to
to bow
him.
out of it and claim victory and
Yeah,
go on
that's-
a rally and give himself a feather in the cap, and it's Trump.
Yeah, it's not going to go well.
Yeah, no, of course not.
Then we've had, we've been watching, particularly last year, we watched a whole bunch of college students who were so pro-Palestinian with all those protests, and they all showed up. And then we watched the protest against ICE, and it's turned out that there's a whole bunch of campaigns behind that, pushing anti-Israel, pushing all these leftist agendas, and they're backed by Iran, right?
Yeah.
So Iran's been using that $170 billion we gave them very well. And then as if that wasn't enough, there is a millionaire,
Billionaire,
billionaire, I'm
multi-billionaire.
sorry, he is a billionaire, I'm sorry,
Multi-billionaire.
Singham, who has ties to the Chinese, to the CCP, also has been doing pro-Palestinian, paying for pro-Palestinian campaigns. The
Yeah.
thing that makes me upset about this, that Iran is doing these things, that the CCP, which really means he's just a communist from China
Right.
who is over here, is doing these things. But what bothers me is the Americans who see nothing wrong with selling out their principles, their country, their families, their friends, for however much these people are paying them, which I can tell you is maybe minimum wage, $15 an hour. So for $15 an hour, they're selling out their country.
I tell you, the propaganda machine and I see your concern, but the propaganda machine that's working against Israel now makes, the Nazis' campaign against the Jews look like child play. I mean, Goebbels would have been highly impressed with one day of propaganda
Yep.
on the internet because I look at some of the posts that are coming out. Clearly AI-generated deception. And a post would come out, and within an hour, there are thousands upon thousands, some cases hundreds of thousands of likes within 1 hour. That's all deception.
Yep.
It's all created to impress people. So I look at the comments, and the comments are like bots. But then you have genuine comments of people who are being swayed by this massive deception campaign, and they are being swayed by, clearly they're being swayed by the actual genuine comments. Well, maybe it's about time Israel gets its upcomings or whatever, but there is a massive, massive tsunami of deception, AI-generated deception that are targeted against Israel. And it's propaganda like nothing ever existed before.
Yep.
The internet is showing its true colors, its capacity towards deception. So we have a question here that I think is going to tie into the discussion, because the discussion so far is about, of course, Trump's obvious unwillingness to carry through with this and Israel's need to finish the job, regardless of what the administration here says, and the propaganda machine that's working against Israel. So we have a question there, and this question, of course, was generated by something someone said. I framed it accordingly, but so maybe we can look at that question, Jim.
You said that Israel must overcome their diaspora mentality. Quote, the spirit of diaspora. Could you elaborate on that for me, please?
So there's a lot of boldness in me declaring that there's a spirit of diaspora working in the Jewish people. You know, who am I to say something like that? It's a bold question. It's a bold assertion. But I believe it's true. Our friends in Israel, they recognize this as a problem as well. I see it as a huge problem. You know, for me, personally, descended from the Bene Anosim. I remember when my dad told me about the history of the family, it stirred some deep emotion in me. And so I a few years later, I'm seeing the restoration of Israel. I'm like, this is wonderful. This is God's will. I read the Torah. I read, Leviticus chapter 26, and I saw this happening. And so to me, it's like the greatest thing ever. And then you have so many Jews that are clinging to the diaspora. It's heartbreaking.
Yep.
It's just heartbreaking. I saw there's this independent journalist on the internet. His name is Tyler Oliveira.
Yeah.
He's kind of ridiculous, right? He's kind of odious. But what he does is really, really, really helpful in helping us understand some of what's happening out there. So he went into a couple of Jewish communities, one in New Jersey, one in upstate New York, and his whole purpose was to expose that these ultra-Orthodox Jewish communities, Chabad, and these communities are living off the country on welfare, and he wanted to make the point they were like a parasite living off the country. And he did a good job. He did a good job in tearing down these Jewish communities. And it's heartbreaking to hear what they had to say. He interviewed a lot of people. And they were saying that most of the people he interviewed, their opinion about Israel is that that's not Israel. They're not Jews. We are Jews. They are not Jews. They're Zionists. They're secular. And that's the epitome of the diaspora mentality, the diaspora spirit. And it's always depressing to hear that coming from a Jewish person. That's also being resonated in Gentiles as well, right? People who are anti-Israel. So many of these communities, such as even in South Florida, the bastion of Jewish communities here in the United States, and this diaspora, is Miami, New York, and now New Jersey is becoming that place as well. So Tyler interviewed these people, and he projected such an awful picture of Jews in the diaspora who just want to live off the country, who just wants to feed off the country and do bare minimum in regards to supporting Israel, but continue to build their community here in the diaspora. That, again, is the epitome of diaspora mentality.
Right.
So the diaspora is really simple. And the whole concept of the diaspora is what God had instituted for Israel when he brought the Assyrians in 722 BC. And then he brought in the Babylonians and then the Romans in 70 AD. The Assyrians, their diaspora was mainly in what's northern Iraq and, Afghanistan, the Peshmerga Trail. That's where most of the northern tribes ended up eventually. That was that diaspora. And then you have the diaspora of the Babylonians, which was mostly, Mesopotamia, right? Mm-hmm. The Romans came along and they dispersed the diaspora. They further lengthened the diaspora out to North Africa, Europe, as far as India even with the Roman Empire, and north into what became the Ashkenazi region and so on. So the diaspora is simple, but God affected the diaspora. And what's the effect of the diaspora that God put in place? Well, it is found in Leviticus chapter 26. The idea of Israel being dispersed and ultimately being restored to the land of Israel, the diaspora, is found throughout the Tanakh. It's found in the Torah only in two places, in Leviticus chapter 26, in Deuteronomy chapter, certain parts of Deuteronomy, but mainly Deuteronomy chapter 4, Leviticus chapter 26, which we will look at. We'll read significant verses from those passages. But what we see here in Leviticus chapter 26 is the foundation of all Bible prophecy concerning Israel's diaspora, and ultimately Israel's return to the land of Israel. Now you have to consider where Leviticus chapter 26 was preached. Leviticus chapter 26 was preached at Mount Sinai. Shortly after the giving of the Torah, God realized that Israel was prone to iniquity. They didn't come to the mountain. They didn't draw close to him. They didn't have intimacy with him at Mount Sinai, which is what that union was supposed to be. It was supposed to be a union. It didn't happen, right? It was literally to be like a marriage contract, a betrothal. It didn't happen. And there was no intimacy between Israel generally and God. So God saw that propensity in Israel to stray away and to be unfaithful as a bride to be, right? Which is exactly what Israel got involved in. So at Mount Sinai in Leviticus 26, God laid it out so perfectly for them. Here's what I expect. Here is what will happen if I receive what I expect. If you give me what I expect, here's what's going to happen. Here's what will happen if you don't give me what I expect. And the ultimate punishment for it, and then the hope of restoration. That's Leviticus 26. It is the most prophetically powerful chapter in all the Bible. All prophecies based on Leviticus 26. Even concerning the nations, it's all about Leviticus chapter 26. To me, Leviticus chapter 26 is a reflection of God's passion. I mean, when you read these verses, they're so powerful, they're so soul-moving. God is not happy with Israel because he's seeing their iniquity. He's seeing their straying away from him.
He's blunt with them here.
And here he's just expressing his desire, but it's being presented in a way as if he knows exactly what's going to come.
Yeah.
And he's laying it out for them, almost like an outline. Here's what's going to happen. Here's how you will suffer in the diaspora, and here's how you will return. And so it's a powerful passage. It predominates all Bible prophecy. What I mean by that is Isaiah, all of his prophecy concerning Israel, concerning the process of the diaspora and the return, is based on this. Jeremiah, Ezekiel, it's all based on this one chapter in the Bible, given at Mount Sinai. So God desired righteousness from Israel. You know, righteous fruit, right? In Isaiah chapter 5, we have the vineyard of the parable of the vineyard in Isaiah chapter 5. What did he want? He wanted righteous fruit.
Right.
Instead, he got no fruit. And he decided to destroy the vineyard, the tower, and the hedge, and the vat that was built in it. That's the parable of the vineyard. It's referring to Israel. It says it right there in Isaiah chapter 5. Israel is my vineyard. And he's going to destroy it. Of course, with the hope of, once again, bringing it back and restoring it. So if we go to Leviticus chapter 26, I'm going to try and share some reading with you.
Okay.
Jim.
Sure.
Maybe I'll read God's hope of good fruit from Israel. Let's read here, if I can see what's going on here in my Bible. Light is kind of, yeah. So you shall, this is Leviticus chapter 26, verse 1 to 3, I'm going to read. You shall not make for yourselves idols, nor shall you set up for yourselves an image of a sacred pillar, which is a Baal. Amazing. Nor shall you place a figured stone in your land to bow down to it, for I am the Lord your God. In other words, worship me. This is the first commandment, right? Worship me.
Right.
You shall keep my Sabbaths and reverence my sanctuary. I am the Lord. So this is the fifth commandment. Keep my Sabbaths. Fifth or sixth commandment, I'm sorry. Sixth commandment. Keep my Sabbath, reverence my sanctuary. If you walk in my statutes and keep my commandments and carry them out. Then it goes on to talk about what will come as a result of they walking out keeping his statutes and walking them out. It says, Then I shall give you rain in their season, so that the land will yield its produce, and the trees of the field will bear their fruit. Indeed, your threshing will last for you until grape gathering, and the grape gathering will last until sowing time. You will thus eat your food to the full and live securely in your land. I shall also grant peace in your land, that you may lie down with no one making you tremble. I shall also eliminate harmful beasts from the land, and no sword will pass through your land. You will chase your enemies, and they will fall before you by the sword. 5 of you will chase 100, and 100 of you will chase 10,000. Your enemies will fall before you by the sword. And it goes on like that all the way to verse 12. So the effect or the result of Israel's obedience, the fruit of their obedience will be blessings. Mm-hmm. Everything will go exactly according to God's will, and there will be a level, a standard of blessings upon Israel that will be amazing. And so this is what God had intended for Israel. So now we're going to look at the consequences of Israel's disobedience to these 3 things God asked them to do, which was to worship no idols, make no statutes, keep my sanctuary holy, and keep my Sabbaths. Those are the 3 things God wanted Israel to do. In that encompasses all of Torah, keeping Torah, refraining from sin. And so then in verses, which we're not going to read, 14 to 32, I'm just going to talk about them. God says, if you were to venture out in rebellion against me, there's going to be war, mm-hmm. enemy occupation. Whereas before you were to set your enemy to flee, they were to run from you. Here, you're going to be destroyed. Your enemy is going to prevail over you. Pestilence, famine, plagues multiplied 7 times over. And then God goes on to say, if you continue to do this, even after I multiply this punishment on you 7 times, he will drive them out into the nations. So God is committed to Israel's righteousness, to Israel bearing the fruit of righteousness. And he's not unwilling to punish Israel in the most intense way. But what we're going to see here, and Jim, maybe you can read a little bit here for us. What we're going to see here is that he's going to punish Israel to its fullest extent, to his fullest extent, which is to drive them out of the land. And as he drives them out, he's going to give the land its Sabbaths. We've talked about this many times. They, in the meantime, will be driven out from place to place. They will flee with nothing chasing them. This is the condition of Israel's state of being in the diaspora. This is what Israel will face and has faced in the diaspora. So, Jim, maybe you can read a little bit, 33 to 39. I'll read 40 to 45. So what Jim's about to read here is the effects of diaspora. And the purpose of the diaspora, which was to give the land its Sabbaths, the Sabbaths that they did not give to the land, 1, and 2, correct Israel's rebellion. Bring them to a place where they can come to the end of their rebellion. So maybe you can read that, Jim?
You, however, I will scatter among the nations, and will draw out a sword after you, as your land becomes desolate and your cities become waste. Then the land will enjoy its Sabbaths, all the days of the desolation, while you are in your enemy's land. Then the land will rest and enjoy its Sabbaths. All the days of its desolation it will observe the rest, which it did not observe on your Sabbaths while you were living on it. As for those of you who may be left, I will also bring weakness into their hearts in the lands of their enemies, and the sound of a driven leaf will chase them. And even when no one is pursuing, they will flee as though from the sword, and they will fall. They will therefore stumble over each other as if running from the sword. although no one is pursuing. And you will have no strength to stand up before your enemies. But you will perish among the nations, and your enemies' land will consume you. So those of you who may be left will rot away because of their iniquity in the lands of your enemies, and also because of the iniquities of their forefathers, they will rot away with them.
How incredibly vivid and graphic are those verses. Now, God is serious. He's not wanting to give here that he is not going to fully, he wants Israel to know and everyone to know that he's going to fully chastise Israel. But this is the condition of the diaspora mentality. This is where it comes from. God drove them out. Part of that punishment is that they will flee when no one is pursuing them. They would be constantly on a defensive mode. And that's the punishment, right? Now, let me read 40 now to 45, if I can get the right light here. So, if they confess their iniquity and the iniquity of their forefathers, in their unfaithfulness which they committed against me, and I also in their acting with hostility against me, I also was acting with hostility against them, to bring them into the land of their enemies. You see that? Or if their uncircumcised heart becomes humble, so that they make amends for their iniquity, then I will remember my covenant with Jacob, and I will remember my covenant with Isaac, and my covenant with Abraham as well. And I will remember the land. There's so much I can say there. Anyway, for the land will be abandoned by them and will make up for its Sabbaths, while it is made desolate without them. They meanwhile will be making amends for their iniquity, because they rejected my ordinances and their soul abhorred my statutes. They making amends for their iniquity among the nations is the essence of the diaspora. Yet in spite of this, when they are in the land of their enemies, I will not reject them. So this is so important. From the lands of their enemies, he will not reject them, nor will I abhor them as to destroy them, breaking my covenant with them. For I am the Lord their God, but I will remember for them the covenant with their ancestors, whom I brought out of the land of Egypt in the sight of the nations, that I might be the Lord, I might be their God, I am the Lord. So God's promises here are relegated towards the time of the restoration. He will remember his promises concerning Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Note it begins with Jacob, Isaac, and Abraham. So he's very vivid here. He wants us to know this is not about Abraham's descendants only. It's about the descendants of Jacob, Israel. So he's going to bring them back. He's going to restore them because of his faithfulness towards Israel. So this is the essence of the diaspora. Let me read in Deuteronomy now, chapter 4. I'm going to read a few verses here, 6 verses in Deuteronomy. That's sort of a synopsis of what we just looked at in Leviticus chapter 26. So in Deuteronomy chapter 4 now, so Moses here is 40 years following his message at Mount Sinai, which is Leviticus chapter 26. So 40 years following this most dismal, this most what we will consider a negative message, yet with the hope of restoration, Moses now brings another message in that same light in Deuteronomy. And so in Deuteronomy chapter 25, 4:25, when you become the father of children and children's children, and have remained long in the land and act corruptly to make an idol in the form of anything, and do that which is evil in the sight of the Lord your God, as to provoke him to anger, I call heaven and earth to witness against you today, that you will surely perish quickly from the land where you are going over the Jordan to possess it. You will not live long in it, but you will be utterly destroyed. What a good message, right? Now, notice here that Moses is not saying perhaps, or you might be. He's saying you will be. Mm-hmm. The Lord will scatter you among the nations, and you will be left few in numbers among the nations where the Lord drives you. From there you will serve gods, the work of man's hands, wood and stone, which neither see, nor hear, nor smell. But from there you will seek the Lord your God, and you will find him if you search for him with all your heart and all your soul. When you are in distress and all these things have come upon you in the latter days, you will return to the Lord your God and listen to his voice. See, I want to say before I read verse 31 that this is where Israel is today. Now, the Jewish people in New York, New Jersey, and to some extent in South Florida that are saying that the people in the land of Israel are secular. That's not really Israel. They're not really Jews. The people that are saying that, they're Zionists. They see Zionists as strictly a political movement. They're not realizing that this process of Israel listening to God's voice and returning to the land because they're listening to his voice is the Geulah, the process of the redemption. So we know people in Israel that live on the mountains of Judea and Samaria. And from their position, they are listening to God's voice. Mm-hmm. God gave them the land. They are recognizing, or they have recognized, that the time of the restoration of Israel is at hand. And they respond to it. That's listening to his voice. That's being obedient. So our friends in Israel, the people that we know in Israel, and the people that are standing on those mountains are following God's voice. They're being obedient to him. They are Jeshurun. They are the upright within the house of Israel. The Jews that are hiding in New York and New Jersey and other parts of the world in general are not Jeshurun. They are Jacob because they're outside of the land. Outside of the land, Jacob was Jacob. Inside of the land, Jacob became Israel. Mm-hmm. And so the Jews of New York, New Jersey, South Florida, and every place that are clinging to this diaspora, they are not Jeshurun. We see the reality of Jeshurun in Isaiah and in Deuteronomy, that there will be an upright. The word Jeshurun means upright. There will be those of faith within the house of Israel that will act upon God's word, that will listen. And that's what Moses is referring to here. So the diaspora mentality is going to be overcome by Jews who will return to the land and listen to his voice. So verse 31, for I am the Lord your God, for the Lord your God is a compassionate God. He will not fail you, nor destroy you, nor forget the covenant with your fathers, which he swore to them. So again, that passage in Deuteronomy chapter 4 is a synopsis of what we see in Leviticus chapter 26. So yes, the diaspora mentality is something that God brought into effect for the purpose of what? For correction. Mm-hmm. He wanted to correct Israel's tendency towards rebellion. But my point is, and the reality of the history that we have now bearing before us, is that we're beyond that point. We've crossed that river. We're on the other side of that now. And the essence of the diaspora mentality that causes Jews that are outside of Israel to be Jacob needs to be laid down. Now, there is the reality that conditions might come into being that will force Jews that are in the diaspora to return to the land of Israel. That's a terrible way to embrace, the reality of the Geulah, the redemption. You should choose to put behind you the attitude of the diaspora. Now, so let's talk a little bit about the psychology of the diaspora, just a little bit. Jews, you remember that Pink Floyd song, Comfortably Numb? Mm-hmm. All right, so Jews in the diaspora, they want to be comfortably numb. Knowing that their purpose and their place is the land of Israel, they embrace a lie that says, no, we're here. The ones in the land of Israel right now, they're not actually Jews, which is slander, right, when you think about it. Yeah, the vast majority of Jews in the land of Israel are secular. But remember what Ezekiel said in Ezekiel chapter 36. He will bring them back unclean, impure, and he will pour out water on them, and then they will be made clean. Now, clean there is referring to faith. In other words, more than 75% of the people in the land of Israel will be considered secular they're barely believers in God. They believe when they're under stress and duress. Like right now, there are more believers in God in Israel than 5-10 years ago.
Right.
All right. So my point is, to these people, these Jewish people that are slandering Israel, and listen, I love the Jewish people. I see them as the people of God. God's going to bring them all home. But their attitude, the things that they're saying is defaming the word of God. It's undermining God's word, and they should be very careful about that. But the Jews that are in the land of Israel that are saying we're here by faith, and even the ones who are secular, who just wants a safe place to be, those are the people of Israel. Why? Because they're in the land of Israel. Again, it's the whole picture of Jacob crossing the Jabbok. So Jews choose to be, again, comfortably numb, to surrender to diaspora, which is security, which is, security and the hope of existence. And that's what they do. I mean, the video that I saw of Tyler Oliveira, he did 2 videos, one in New Jersey and one in New York. It was shocking. I mean, it's huge communities. I'm talking about 1.4 million people, Jews, strong communities, and they all avoid Israel. They all avoid the topic of Israel. They refuse to embrace true Zionism because they're afraid. They're still in the diaspora. They're still running from the nations, right? And so that's the mentality. All right. So they always defend this, this posture of defense.
Right.
Promote the idea that we have to be defensive. We have to circle the wagons as a people. All right. That is what God's going to deal with. That's the greatest obstacle to the redemption right now. The fact that almost half of the Jewish nation is outside of the diaspora, refusing to make that journey home. The war right now is making it more difficult because they're seeing missiles coming in from Iran. They're seeing such hatred being leveled against Israel, and the hatred is immense. It's become, only in the last 2 months, it's become much more visceral. So now more than ever, they will say, we want nothing to do with the land of Israel. We want nothing to do with Zionism. But the overarching reality here is that God's going to provide the conditions under which, unfortunately, they will have no choice but to return.
Yeah.
And I looked at those 2 videos by Tyler last night, and I am amazed how comfortable they are, how grounded, how rooted they are in the diaspora. And what is it going to take for them to be rooted up and to return to the land of Israel? It's going to take unfortunate circumstances. But the transition is going to occur. The spirit of the diaspora will be replaced by the spirit of restoration. It's going to happen. I was more optimistic a year ago than I am now because I'm seeing so many things happening, so much awful things happening that are preventing Israel to really, those in the diaspora, to really press in regards to faith. But God is restoring Israel, regardless of what the Jewish communities are saying now or how they're relating to Israel now. God is restoring Israel. The one who scattered Israel will regather Israel. And that's a fundamental Bible verse that we see in Jeremiah chapter 31. It reflects so much of what the prophets say concerning Israel. So Jim, just read that one little verse there in chapter 31.
Hear the word of the Lord, O nations, and declare in the coastlands afar off, and say, He who scattered Israel will gather him, and keep him as a shepherd keeps his flock.
Now that verse should be put on every synagogue around the world.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That one verse says it all. Who is he speaking to? He's speaking to the nations. And the reason he's speaking to the nations is because God fully well understood and understands that the nations will have a wrong perspective also, a wrong attitude towards Israel in the diaspora. That even the nations will have a diaspora spirit, a diaspora attitude towards Israel. What do I mean by that? There is, in fact, still in place an attitude, a spirit among the nations that this is the plight of Israel. And for that reason, they must keep Israel subdued. The idea that Israel can become its own independent nation and become a viable world power is a horrifying thing, a terrible specter to the nations. So the nations themselves has a diaspora mentality to overcome concerning Israel, which is one of subduing them, suppressing them so that they would not arise to become the nation that God wants them to be. So quite literally, what I saw in those two videos is that the government of New York, they keep those people happy. They keep them incubated, provides for them everything they need. Literally, the local governments of around these communities are sustaining them. Why? Because they don't want them going to Israel. And when I say they, I'm talking about principalities. I'm talking about spirits. Because there are spirits at work here, principalities, that are wanting to keep Israel in the diaspora. Provide for them everything they need so they will just stay put. That diaspora mentality of the nations has to come to an end and will come to an end. It's that diaspora mentality of the nations that's wanting to destroy Israel and perhaps drive out the 6 million Jews that are in the land back into the nations again. Because that's, according to the diaspora mentality of the nations, that's where they belong. We don't want them back in the land.
And I agree with you, but that mentality within the nations is not going to change until all those Jews that are in the diaspora change, because people will treat you how you allow them to treat you.
Yeah, and that's right. That simplifies it quite a lot. But of course, it's much more complex.
Mm-hmm.
It's vastly more
issue.
complex.
Oh,
I mean, life's good in America.
Yeah.
A lot of them don't want to leave, and the rabbis don't want to lose their synagogues to people making aliyah.
I lived in South Florida. I spent summers in New York. I still go to New York occasionally because that's where my oldest daughter lives. And she is just stone's throw from some Jewish communities. The Jews in South Florida and in New York are nothing like the Jews in Israel. Even the secular Jews. I'm sorry.
Way true.
They will eventually, I agree with you, they will eventually find their faith because they are standing.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's just going to take a little while for them to realize that where's the best place to stand, right? And it's sad because when you look back at World War II, what happened? All the Jews were like, we're good Germans. Nobody's going to treat us badly. Because we've always been good Germans. And
that's a diaspora mentality,
yes, even as they were getting into the cattle cars, they were still saying that. We're good Germans.
Tyler interviewed one particular guy that was relatively honest, and Tyler attempted to get him to put in priority where his identity is. Who is he? Who is he looking? Where is he looking for identity? And he said, "Well, I'm an American citizen, but I'm a Torah observant Jew." And the other perspective was, I'm a family man. So I'm an American citizen, Torah observant Jew, and I'm loyal to my family. Nowhere there was the attitude of Aliyah, Israel, right?
Right.
It's not even a factor.
And his faith should have been first.
The Torah observant is edging.
And the spirit of this world, the spirit that needs to be delivered out of this world concerning wanting to see Israel remain in that diaspora prison, is very much at work in keeping Jews in the diaspora.
Yes.
Again, the only Jews that the spirit of this world has a problem with are the ones in Israel.
Yeah.
And it goes back to a quote from Golda Meir, a simple quote, but reflects so much of the reality that we're seeing today. So much of what we see today is based on this simple fact that the world hates a Jew. And this is a direct quote from Golda Meir back in the 1970s. This was made during the War of Attrition, when Israel was defending itself from the Arab nations. And she said, the world hates a Jew who hits back. The world loves us only when we are to be pitied. That simple statement resounds clearly today. The Jews in the diaspora are to be pitied. The nations will do all that they can to keep them in that place, keep them there. The ones that are in the land, we don't like them. We want to destroy them. You know, it's like Spain and Portugal. Spain and Portugal opened their gates, their immigration gates for Jews to return to Spain and Portugal as if that was their place to begin with. This is like 4 years ago. Mm-hmm. Spain did it first, and then Portugal did it. They provided that Jews who can connect themselves to Spain and Portugal, even haven't been forcibly converted, if they can prove that their ancestors were Jews, they can come back to Spain and Portugal. But at the same time, Spain and Portugal, they absolutely despise the land of Israel. Mm-hmm. It's the whole principle of the nation's attitude towards the diaspora of Jews. We'll keep them here. We'll do whatever we can to keep them here. We'll provide for them. God forbid that they should return to the land of Israel and begin to hit, begin to punch and defend themselves. So it's that attitude that God's going to burn that out of the nations. He's going to deliver the nations with much pain from that attitude. The spirit of the diaspora has to be burnt out of Israel and of the nations.
Right.
The nations will ultimately have to come to terms with the simple fact that he who scattered Israel will regather Israel like a shepherd his flock. And that's why God, through Jeremiah, addressed that note to the nations. You see, that passage in Jeremiah chapter 31, verse 10, was not meant for Israel. It was meant for the nations. And so incredibly heartbreaking is that Christians need to hear this. It's such a travesty that Christians are the nations.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We are the nations. We are the ones who would do whatever it takes to hold them in bondage here in the diaspora and not let them go. That's a travesty. Is Spain a Christian nation? Portugal a Christian? Yes.
Catholic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yes.
I would argue that this year Spain became a Muslim nation. They are back to being.
Okay.
Okay, but
Back
on
to
paper, I mean, the reality is
technically, yes, they do
they're
the whole
Christian,
Catholic
right?
thing, yes.
So here you have this country, which is supposed to be a Christian country as well, and we're doing whatever we can to keep our Jews here. You know, Portugal, after the expulsion edict, mm-hmm. Portugal did everything it could to keep their Jews in their borders. Why? Because
they're not a threat there.
No. Not only that, they would provide economic prosperity for Portugal.
That too, yes.
The kings of Portugal knew that, well, if we let them go, we're going to lose our financial footing. Right. These Jews are maritime people. They govern the sea. They have money. We need them. And so Portugal did everything they could to keep them there. Mm-hmm. Eventually, they fled. They got out of Portugal, or they were all assimilated. But you see, the main principality behind the nations, of course, is the evil one.
Right.
And he understands what Jews in the land of Israel represents, especially Jews, the sons of Israel, that will defend themselves. He knows what it means. And all of the animus and hatred that you see being generated, people are paying billions of dollars to generate this mm-hmm. propaganda, is based on Satan's fear that this is the time when Jacob would become Israel and stand up. What did Jacob do as he became Israel? What did he do just before he became Israel? He struggled. He fought. Mm-hmm. He fought with God. So this battle right now is about Israel, Jacob, fighting with God to stay in the diaspora. But, of course, we know the end of that story. Jacob crossed over, and he became that picture of redemption, Israel. So it always comes back to that simple fact. But the diaspora mentality is Israel wanting to be safe, wanting to be financially prosperous, not believing that this Zionist process is the Zionist process, not believing that this is the Geulah, preferring safety, That's what the diaspora mentality is. And God's doing a work there for sure. And hopefully it will happen without much duress. But the attitude, what is more concerning, or not concerning, what is more devastating than Israel's diaspora mentality is the nation's diaspora mentality. Because the nation's diaspora mentality of Israel is going to lead to the Valley of Jehoshaphat, where the nations will be judged.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the end of that.
Yep.
That's where that is going. So I'm not sure if our program, if our discussion tonight has made any headway in regards to understanding the diaspora and the significance of the diaspora, but I think the most important thing is that we know that the spirit of the diaspora also functions within the context of the nations. And that's what's generating all this hate and anti-Semitism that we see today. And many people are being swooped into this. It's amazing. We have, again, like I always cite, we have 2.5 billion Christians. By the way, Roman Catholicism is growing in this country.
Yep.
There's a Roman Catholic revival, an Orthodox revival taking place right under our noses, which is amazing. The truth is, Orthodox Christianity will never recover from this Israel diaspora mentality. Orthodox Christianity has no choice but to see Israel as a pitied people. But Israel will not remain a pitied people. Israel will begin to punch back, and that's what's happening right now, more and more. And so let's consider not being Orthodox Christians. Let's consider being biblically grounded Christians, disciples of Jesus who would put the Word of God before orthodoxy, before conventionality, and that's our hope of salvation. Literally, we live in an age where if you embrace orthodoxy and its position towards Israel, you might end up in the Valley of Jehoshaphat bearing the mark of the beast. The Word of God is going to set you free from that bondage that's certainly on the horizon.
Well, that's our program. If these questions raise other questions in your thinking, and surely they do, we would love for you to share them with us. The easiest way to do that is to email us at voice@buildupzion.org. Again, that's voice@buildupzion.org. And until next week, Shalom.